Before Wi-Fi was in the air and USBs lived in our pockets, the 90s home tech setup was a whole personality. Your living room looked like a Radio Shack exploded in the best way. Giant TVs that weighed as much as your uncle, VHS stacks taller than you, and CD towers that low-key doubled as modern art. If you were lucky, your crib had the soft blue glow of an iMac humming in the corner and a caller ID box blinking like it was waiting on a call from Ghostface. And if you had a DVD player, man, you were the cool house. Movie nights hit different when that disc tray slid out like a spaceship. This was a decade where tech was tactile, heavy, loud, glorious, and every sound meant something was working or about to overheat. So let's rewind, literally. Eject those fuzzy memories and pop in some crisp nostalgia as we walk down the home gadgets that made the 90s feel like the future, even when they were a headache to figure out. But before we dive in, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and drop a comment if you ever had to blow a cartridge or pray your DVD wouldn't skip during the best part. Let's get it.
So you've heard about DVD.
Have you seen DVD?
Well, this is DVD.
Before streaming, before Blu-ray, before Netflix and chill, there was the DVD. 3 letters that literally upgraded your living room overnight. If you lived through the 90s, you remember that moment when VHS tapes suddenly felt like grandpa's tech and the DVD player came in like a UFO full of promise.
DVD isn't just better than a VCR, it's amazingly better.
The quality, crisp. The load times, kinda slow, but futuristic. The menus, interactive and low-key exciting. And the best part, no more rewinding. You could skip scenes, jump to bonus features, and watch the bloopers before even finishing the movie.
The Panasonic digital video disc will do for movies what the compact disc did for music. DVD.
The first time you saw that no disc message hit the screen, chilling. But once it worked, man, it was a wrap. The DVD format dropped in 1997 in the US, and by 1999, every house that wasn't still taping over old McDonald's commercials on VHS was making the upgrade.
Any technology that heightens the experience of watching movies at home makes life even more enjoyable.
And portable DVD players changed the game. Now you could watch The Matrix or Space Jam in the backseat of a minivan like royalty. That tiny screen, those weak speakers, all of that, it didn't matter. You had movies on the go. You were living in the future. Whether it was stacked in an AV cabinet or folded into your lap on a family road trip, the DVD player became the heart of the home theater setup. It was the beginning of home cinema as we know it, and it made your living room feel like a Friday night premiere. But before we were sliding shiny discs into sleek players, we were living that rewind life, tracking lines, cassette clicks, and rental tape drama. So let's take it back to where home video really began, the VCR. Before you could skip anything, you had to rewind like a responsible human being. And if you didn't, that Be Kind Rewind sticker was gonna haunt your soul, for real. And maybe your late fees at Blockbuster too.
I've thought of something. Why don't we rent a video tonight?
Yeah, can we please?
The VCR, aka the video cassette recorder, was the heavyweight champ of home entertainment in the 90s. It wasn't just a movie player, it was a movie maker. Birthday parties, church plays, your uncle's bad dance moves at the family reunion, all caught on VHS tape, forever, whether you liked it or not. And let's not act like recording shows off the TV wasn't a full-time job. Trying to hit record right as Martin started, but not catch the commercials, high-pressure mission.
And get the new one with cable box channel control. The first VCR that changes channels on your cable box.
Every VCR had its own personality. Some ate tapes like a vending machine with an attitude. Others had a remote the size of a brick. And if your family had 2 VCRs for dubbing tapes, you were elite. You were dangerous. You were pirating everything from WrestleMania to Belly, allegedly. And that VHS tape itself, bulky, clunky, and beautiful. Slam one across the room and it'll still play. Sometimes with those weird tracking lines that made you look like you were looking through a fish tank. But we loved it nonetheless. VCRs weren't just tech, they were time machines. They froze memories and preserved classics, even when the tape was worn out and the label just said, "Do not erase." Now, while VHS was the king of playback, there was a short-lived, oversized piece of royalty that was trying to outclass it with pure cinematic drama. Big, shiny, and heavy enough to stop a robbery. Let's talk about the Laserdisc.
Then Pioneer gives me their Laserdisc player. It's a video turntable that works with a laser beam, and that laser beam makes all the difference, they tell me.
All right, so picture this. A DVD the size of a vinyl record, that's the Laserdisc. It dropped before DVDs, looked slick as hell, and felt like the future for about 5 minutes. Laserdiscs came out in the late 70s, but really hit their little cultural peak in the 90s when rich uncles and film nerds tried to convince you they were better quality than VHS. And they weren't lying. The picture was cleaner, the audio had that crispy theater vibe, but good luck finding a machine that actually worked without sounding like it was about to take off into orbit.
Gourmet video for people who know and love video. I see.
You couldn't record anything on them. They were huge, they weighed more than your little sister, and the wildest part is, most movies came on 2 discs. And halfway through the film, you had to get up and flip it like it was a pancake. That's right, you're watching Jurassic Park, things are getting intense, and boom, flip to side B. Immersion shattered. Still, if you knew somebody with a Laserdisc setup in the 90s, you knew they were serious about their movie game. They had that weird shelf full of discs that looked like something from Tron, and you weren't allowed to touch them, not unless your hands were clean and your soul was pure. It was expensive, it was bulky, and eventually got bodied by the DVD. But for a brief time, Laserdisc was the fancy flex for tech heads, film students, and rich kids who wanted to watch movies the way the director intended.
The latest and greatest movies are on Laserdisc at Video and Sound downtown.
Laserdisc looked cool, sure, but if you wanted to make your own tapes, there was only one go-to gadget at the time. It's time to shoulder up and hit record, because camcorders brought the action home.
Something happens between the weddings and birthday parties. It's called the rest of your life. That's why we created America's most popular camcorder, the Handycam.
Before everybody had a 4K camera in their phone, the camcorder was how you captured memories and bad fashion choices forever. This was the official device of school plays, church Easter programs, cookouts, and that one cousin doing backflips in the kiddie pool. Camcorders in the 90s came in 2 main flavors. A, big and bulky like a shoulder-mounted bazooka, or B, slightly smaller but still heavy enough to ruin your wrist after filming more than 10 minutes. They recorded straight to VHS, VHS-C, or 8mm tapes, and every tape had a 50-50 chance of being reused over your 5th birthday footage because somebody forgot to label it. RIP to the many lost memories. If your parents were the type to carry one around at every event, you were both blessed and doomed. You'd have all your childhood moments saved, but also blackmail footage of you singing "I Will Always Love You" into a hairbrush in your pajamas, on tape forever.
Sharp, the only 12-to-1 zoom camcorder, that's who. Sharp, so fully automatic, just turn it on and shoot.
And then there were the buttons. Camcorders had more buttons than a space shuttle. Zoom in, fade out, adjust focus manually, and none of it ever worked the way you thought. Most of the time you hit record thinking you were recording, but you really were recording your knees for 5 minutes when the important stuff happened before you pressed the button. Still, camcorders were the heart of homemade memories. They turned regular people into documentarians. They made everyday life feel like it was worth filming, and in the 90s, it absolutely was. Now that we got your home theater experience covered, it's time to tap into the mother combo with data storage in the 90s, floppy disks and zip drives. Back in the 90s, saving a file meant physically holding on to your data, and not just holding it, but guarding it like it was the last slice of pizza. Enter the floppy disk, the 1.44 megabyte miracle that somehow managed to store entire essays, game saves, and all that good stuff in a square, little plastic envelope that couldn't survive sunlight or dust.
Because of all that jams your disk drive, you can lose all your data. And that's no exaggeration. Memorex has the edge.
And let's be real, we called them floppy, but by the 90s, they were hard plastic and fragile as hell. Put one in your backpack without the case, say goodbye to your Oregon Trail progress. Need more space than a floppy? That's when the zip drive came in swinging. Looking like a thick floppy disk on steroids, zip drives gave you about 100 megabytes, or later, even 250 megabytes, which was mind-blowing at the time. That was enough to store like an entire Carter encyclopedia in a bootleg episode of the X-Files.
Stuff. And it's so affordable. Zucchini, anyone?
The zip drive from iOmega, because it's your stuff.
Let's go!
But let's not forget, zip drives had their own weird energy. They were faster, sleeker, and cooler, but expensive, experimental, and had a reputation for something called the click of death. One wrong click, and poof, your files went straight to digital hell. Floppy disks were everywhere, from schools to offices to your cousin's bedroom where he had that weird BMP file and that one Word document that said, "Do not open." Zip drives were more of a rich kid flex or a graphic design student essential, but both were a rite of passage before USB sticks and cloud storage made us soft. You didn't back up your floppy, you lived dangerously. And when it worked, you felt like a hacker in a Disney movie. But while you were saving files in 1 megabyte chunks, a new machine arrived that looked like a toy and worked like a dream. Let's fire up the translucent revolution, the original iMac.
And then there's the new iMac, which is about as un-PC as you can get.
Listen, if the VCR made your house cool, the iMac G3 made it look like you lived in the future. Launched in 1998, this wasn't just a computer, it was a statement. A big, round, Bondi blue, all-in-one spaceship of a machine that sat on your desk like it was about to talk to you. Steve Jobs came back to Apple and basically said, forget the beige boxes, we're making this aesthetic. And he did. The iMac G3 dropped in all kinds of wild colors. Lime, tangerine, grape, strawberry. It looked more like a jelly bean collection than a tech lineup, and people loved it. It had USB ports instead of those weird serial plugs. No floppy drive, bold move. And that chunky CRT screen built right into the body. Plus, a handle, a whole handle. You weren't going to carry it like a boombox, but it made you feel like you could.
Step 1. Plug in. Step 2. Get connected. Step 3. There's no step 3.
And let's not forget that dial-up modem built in, that little screech and hum of connecting to AOL or Earthlink. That was the soundtrack of every 90s late-night chat session. The iMac made you believe in surfing the web, even when the internet moved slower than your cousin's broken bike. This was the computer that you begged your parents for when you were tired of using the crusty one at school. The one that made PowerPoint presentations kind of fun and introduced half of us to the concept of downloading something overnight. The iMac G3 wasn't just about tech specs, it was about vibe. It brought color, personality, and attitude to personal computing. It was the first desktop that didn't look like it belonged in an accountant's office. It looked like it belonged in a dorm room, a bedroom, or a music video. Apple was changing the look of tech, but over in business land, another machine was doing the real work, quietly flexing with innovation and a keyboard trick that still gets applause. Enter the IBM ThinkPad 701C.
Isn't technology wonderful?
Launched in 1995, the ThinkPad 701C was IBM's way of saying, we can fit a full-size keyboard into a mini laptop. Watch this. And boy, did they deliver. This thing came with a butterfly keyboard, a freaking mechanical marvel that slid out and expanded like it was unfolded wings. That's right, you'd open the laptop and the keyboard would do a little robotic dance to transform into full size. It was smooth, it was sleek, it was straight up sorcery for 1995. And here's the twist, it wasn't just a gimmick. This was a real deal business machine. The keyboard was comfortable, the build was tough, and the red track point, aka the tiny joystick in the middle of the keyboard, became an IBM signature. It was like the laptop version of a Swiss Army knife, compact, sturdy, and kinda flexy if you brought it out in a meeting.
That's why we created the 4.5-pound ThinkPad 701. And gave it a price that makes it easy to get your hands on one.
But as wild and innovative as it was, the ThinkPad 70C's time in the spotlight was short-lived. Screens got bigger, designs changed, and IBM eventually ditched the butterfly magic. Still, this laptop became a legend. Tech collectors still chase it like sneakerheads hunting for dead stock Air Maxes. And let's be honest, back in the 90s, if you whipped this thing out in school or the office, you didn't even have to log on to impress people. Just opening the lid was enough to make somebody go, "Yo, what is that?" The ThinkPad 701C didn't just bring function, it brought flair. It was the kind of gadget that made you believe laptops had a little bit of soul, or at least a transformer living inside. Now that you guys are able to compute the information I've been giving you, let's end this list off with a machine that allowed you to see who it was that was about to give you the 411 before you even answered, the caller ID.
Who is this?
Why don't you guess?
555-1482. How's that? Close enough?
Before smartphones, before text message, and way before you could ghost somebody with a swipe, caller ID was the first real line of defense. It was that tiny screen that sat right next to the landline phone and let you think, do I actually want to answer this? Dropped into homes in the early 90s, caller ID didn't just tell you who was calling, it empowered you. No more guessing, no more Russian roulette with telemarketers, bill collectors, or that one cousin who always wanted to borrow money. If it said unknown caller or out of area, you knew what time it was. Let it ring.
Oh, hold on.
What's better than caller ID?
Jimbo!
How about caller ID that works even when you're on the phone?
Yeah! Bring the kids. Hi, make that 2 large pepperoni.
And if your ex's number popped up, you had options. You could pick it up with a petty hello, wait a few rings to look cool, or let it go to voicemail just to assert dominance. Caller ID gave you that control, the power, that ability to screen your life like a Netflix queue. Some phones had it built in. Others came with those little plug-in boxes that had a glowing green display and a 2-line readout. It felt futuristic, and when it started storing numbers and keeping the call history, that was high-level espionage. Now you could scroll through and say, look who tried to call me again. Caller ID made prank calls harder, mystery calls rarer, and annoying calls easier to dodge. It was quiet, it was simple, but in the 90s, it was revolutionary.
New caller ID from US West tells you who a phone call is from, so you can decide how to handle it.
It's my mother. I'll call her back.
So, if you're not in the mood to...
And we covered everything from glowing phones to DVD trays to flying keyboards and floppy disk drama. Your 90s living room might have looked like a tech jungle, but it was home base for a generation that saw the future coming through wires, tapes, and blinking lights. If this episode brought back memories or just made you want to dust off your old VHS tapes, hit that like button, subscribe, or let us know in the comments which of these gadgets you had or still have hidden in the closet somewhere. And if you're ready for part 2, just get ready and make room, because we about to pack your pockets. Word up, we out.